All right, so today we're diving into something pretty controversial.
Yeah.
President Biden's declaration that the ERA is officially ratified.
Okay.
You know, the Equal Rights Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at this Intelligencer article.
Right.
Biden says ERA is ratified, but Supreme Court gets final say.
I see.
And it's got all these legal twists and turns, so we'll try to untangle it all.
Okay. Yeah, it's a real puzzle. It
Yeah,
has a really long history.
it does.
But let's start with Biden declaring the ERA ratified, like right at the end of his presidency.
Right.
What do you think about the timing of that?
It's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Seems like a strategic move
Hmm.
or just like symbolic, you know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a statement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Throwing down the gauntlet. The
Yeah.
article even quotes someone saying
Okay.
that Mr. Biden and his allies are daring opponents to go to court to argue that women do not have equal rights.
Wow.
So
yeah.
to understand that, though,
Cool.
you need to back up a little bit.
Yeah.
The ERA is supposed to guarantee equal rights for all citizens, regardless of sex.
Right.
It sounds pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
but it's not been a simple process to get it ratified.
No, it hasn't. It's been a long road.
It has.
Decades of debate,
Right.
political maneuvering.
Yeah.
Congress passed it in 72,
Uh-huh.
but it needed 38 states
Oh.
to ratify it to get it in the Constitution.
Yeah.
And we didn't get that number by the 1982 deadline.
Right. But then a few years ago, Nevada, Illinois, and Virginia all ratified the ERA.
They did.
And that brought this whole thing back.
It really did.
And that leads us to Biden's declaration.
Yeah.
He basically told the national archivist,
Okay.
and this is important for everyone to understand.
Yeah.
This is the person who officially adds amendments to the Constitution
Right.
to publish the ERA and say it's ratified.
So why wouldn't she just do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Biden's the president.
Yeah, it's not that simple. The archivist actually refused.
Oh, wow.
She said there's legal stuff and lawsuits that challenge whether the ERA is even valid,
Right.
and Biden didn't actually formally order her to publish it.
Oh, so that's a gray area.
It is. It's like
Oh,
a
yeah.
power play,
Mm-hmm.
but it could have big consequences.
Yeah, it sounds like this is going to end up in the Supreme Court.
Probably.
And with the court how it is now,
Right.
it might not be good for the ERA.
That's an important point.
Yeah.
The article talks about Senator Gillibrand.
Okay.
She was really pushing to get those recent ratifications.
Right.
She wanted to codify women's freedom and equality, and she didn't want to have to depend on Congress for that.
Right, because they can't seem to agree on anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's that story about her talking to Biden at a Christmas party
Yeah,
about the ERA.
that's pretty funny.
I know, right?
Talk about seizing the moment.
Yeah, I could go ahead.
But even if this does go to the Supreme Court,
Yeah,
and
but-
even if they decide for the ERA,
Is that really the end of it?
that's a good question,
Yeah.
because we're talking about changing how society works
Uh-huh.
and maybe getting rid of laws that have been around forever.
Yeah.
So what does the ERA actually say?
Right.
What rights is it trying to guarantee?
Mhm.
And how is it affecting people today?
Yeah, that's what we need to look at next.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
I'm also really interested in the arguments against the ERA.
Okay.
Why are some people against it?
That's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
The article doesn't really go into that side of things much,
Oh, really?
so we
Yeah.
might need to look at some other stuff
Okay.
to really understand all of it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So let's look at those arguments against the ERA.
Okay.
We need to see both sides,
Right.
right, to understand this whole thing.
Right. This article doesn't really talk too much about the other side,
Yeah.
but we can figure out some of the concerns from, you know, the
Right.
history and what people usually say.
One big argument is that there might be consequences they didn't expect.
Okay.
People were worried that if you say equality has to be based on sex,
Mm-hmm.
it could mess up some laws that protect women right now,
Okay.
like the ones about alimony
Right.
or what the rules are for women in the military.
So it's not that they don't agree that everyone should be equal.
Right.
It's more like they're worried that the ERA is too broad
Yeah, exactly.
and that it could cause problems with the law later on.
That's it.
Okay.
Some people also say the ERA isn't even necessary.
Okay.
They say laws we already have,
Okay.
like the 14th Amendment, already protect people from being discriminated against because of their sex.
So they're saying that the ERA is trying to fix something that's already been fixed.
Kinda. Yeah.
Wouldn't people who support the ERA say that those laws aren't strong enough?
Yeah,
Like they could be changed easily
exactly.
if the political situation changes.
That's what they'd say. They'd say, we need something really solid in the Constitution that says everyone has equal rights.
Yeah.
And that can't be changed easily by politicians or judges.
This reminds me of the debate about privacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in the Constitution specifically,
Right.
but some people say it's implied
Yeah.
by other amendments,
Mm-hmm.
but other people say it needs to be written down clearly.
It's the same kind of argument.
Yeah.
It's about how we understand the Constitution and whether it needs to change to deal with the problems we have today.
And with Roe v. Wade being overturned,
Right.
it feels like people are even more worried about the ERA now.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's about reproductive rights and equal rights.
Mm-hmm.
And now that Roe v. Wade is gone,
Yeah.
it shows that rights that aren't written in the Constitution are really vulnerable.
Exactly.
So going back to Biden,
Yeah.
do you think his declaration was just symbolic? Or could it actually help the ERA?
It's hard to say,
Yeah,
but it's definitely made people talk about the ERA again.
it has.
And it's put pressure on the courts. It's a risky move, but it might work.
What about Senator Gillibrand? Do you
Yeah.
think what she's doing is better?
Like working with the system.
Yeah, and lobbying people.
She's really persistent.
She is.
It shows how important it is to be politically active.
Yeah.
But in the end, Supreme Court will probably decide what happens to the ERA.
So if it does go to the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
what kind of legal stuff will they have to think about?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
One thing will be whether that deadline Congress set is still valid.
The 1982 one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you extend a deadline like that?
Right.
And if you can, how do you do it?
Yeah.
They'll also have to decide about states that took back their ratification.
Right.
Can they change their minds again?
Those are some big questions.
They are.
And it depends on how this court interprets the Constitution
Mm-hmm.
and the whole amendment process.
Yep. It's a really important case.
Yeah.
And it's really important for people to understand these details and to talk about what's at stake here.
Because it's not just about the law.
Right.
It's about basic rights.
Exactly.
And what equality means in our society.
Yeah.
So we were talking about what it would take to make sure the ERA is actually enforced,
Yeah.
even if it is ratified.
It's a really good question.
It's one thing to have a law,
Mm-hmm.
but it's another thing for it to actually change things
Yeah.
and make society fairer.
Right. We need to think about education
Okay.
and advocacy
Yeah.
and holding people accountable
Yeah.
to make the ERA actually happen.
It's like planting a seed.
Okay.
Ratification is just the first step.
Yeah.
You have to take care of it
Right.
and help it grow.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Shows that we need to be committed for the long haul
Yeah.
to really make a difference.
So wrapping up this whole ERA thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely not a simple story.
No, it's not.
It's about political fights
Yeah.
and legal complications
Mm-hmm.
and people fighting for equality for generations.
And it's still going on.
Yeah, the future is uncertain,
It is.
but one thing's for sure.
What's that?
We need to keep talking about the ERA.
We do. It's more important now than ever.
Well, we really dug into the ERA, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
From Biden's announcement to like the whole history of it
Mm-hmm.
and the legal challenges and even the arguments against it.
Right.
What surprised you the most about all this?
I think it's how relevant this amendment still is.
Yeah,
It shows that people are still fighting for equality.
right.
And that progress isn't always straightforward. You know, we're still arguing about this stuff after all these years.
Yeah, it's been decades.
It really shows how deep gender inequality is.
Yeah, it makes you realize how much more work there is to do.
It does.
But it's also pretty inspiring to see how many people are fighting for this.
It is.
Like Senator Gillibrand,
Yeah.
all the people and groups working on this behind the scenes. It shows real dedication.
It does. And that's where you come in.
Our listeners.
Yeah. It's easy to feel overwhelmed with all the legal stuff and the politics.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that change starts with regular people.
So what can people do to help?
Well,
Should they contact their representatives?
yeah,
Or support groups that are working on this?
definitely.
Or even talk to people they know who might not agree with them?
All of that and more.
Okay.
Stay informed.
Right.
Have real conversations about this.
Yeah.
Challenge discrimination when you see it. And speak up for people who don't have a voice.
It's interesting to think about how the ERA could change things.
If it's ratified,
Like
right?
how laws would be interpreted
Right.
and policies in education, employment, healthcare.
It's a big deal.
It is.
The ERA isn't just symbolic.
Right.
It could really make society fairer for everyone.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
This one amendment could lead to all sorts of positive changes.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to stay involved and keep learning about this.
Yeah.
The ERA story isn't over. It's not.
And what happens next depends on people like you.
Well said.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here.
Of course.
It's been great talking about all this with you.
Yeah, it has.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive helps you understand the Equal Rights Amendment better.
It's a complex issue.
It is. But remember, knowledge is power.
That's right.
Stay informed, stay engaged,
Yeah.
and you can help make the world a fairer place.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening.